legislature and lobbying the school district and for raises and dealing with their grievances and so forth. One of the philosophies of the administration at DISD at that time when I moved in was the fact that the association, what you need to do is to come up with a system where you could keep the association's employees, like myself, all tied up in grievances. So they came up with a long, drawn-out grievance process. And I'm telling you, it worked for the district.
Yeah. Let's go back to your teaching from '63 to '71. Were there any efforts made to desegregate the schools between '63 and '71 that again you bring us up to TASB case as sort of a benchmark of what happens in the school district? So what's happening between '63 and '71?
With the desegregation of the school?
As far as what you saw.
Basically, there was, while I was at Madison, I think they sent over one white teacher, and we had an assistant principal who was white. And there was just no really, mixture. We have no students at all. There were just a few teachers, administrators that they would send over and kind of mix up a little bit, but students were not. And I guess, we think about this in terms of how it impacted on the African American community. I was talking to a fella who grew up in Oak Cliff. He's Anglo, and he was telling me that he had moved. He had attended, and growing up, he had attended 8 different schools. He lived in Oak Cliff, and he said, I would be at a school, and all of a sudden, they would designate this school for blacks, and tell us we'd have to go, to another school. So the district helped maintain, as far as I'm concerned, segregation by turning schools over to blacks and running the whites out, rather than saying anybody can attend these schools. And actually, there was just no real desegregation here in Dallas until that TASB case. And the judge said that the ratio had to be 75-25. That was for the faculty. And of course, the whites boycotted the schools that the black schools they wouldn't attend. And so it was kind of like they bused, and it was just sort of a one-way process with a busing.
Why did you decide to start working with the Texas State Teachers Association?
Well, at that time, they were the one that invited me to come work for them. And at that time, I was young, and young, you kind of going up the ladder. And I was active with the association, by the way. I had been active in the association as a teacher with the Classroom Teachers of Dallas. I had been active addressing, the concerns that they have, as teachers and so forth. So they, I guess, took note of me and asked me if I would apply, which I did, and they gave me the job.
Okay. You mentioned my article, and one of the things I say is that there's a decline in the NAACP in Dallas starting in the '60s. What happened to the NAACP in your estimation, since you were a member consistently? And of course, I ran across several things that was happening in the '80s and '90s, the fight over leadership with Don Robinson and Curtis Watkins and several other people who were in constant battle with each other versus dealing with some of the issues that were facing the community. So in your estimation, what happened to the NAACP in Dallas?
I think it was back in the was it the 60s when the NAACP they decided to come up with multiple branches. We had multiple branches here for a while.
Okay.
And then it was in the 60s, early 70s, where we sort of went back to one major branch.
Okay.
I remember, seemed like it was H. Red James brought us all back together under his leadership. And NAACP had been kind of controlled by a lot of the ministers that controlled the organization. And that control had moved away, I think, from the more or less from the churches to the I guess just the lay people in the community. And of course, you're right, there was a lot of fights. The branch, they're actually controlled by the national office. And they've got what they call an article. What is it, article? I forgot. That's an article where you can file a complaint against another member. One of the officers.
Yeah.
And for some reason or another, a person would get elected, and as soon as he was elected, somebody had filed some kind of complaint against that individual. And they would send down investigators. They come down and investigate, and they make a determination. And in some of those determinations, they would remove the leaders. And that was the case with Don
Robinson.
Don Robinson. And I remember Ted Watkins. They filed one of those complaints against him, and Ted was doing, I thought, of some things locally in the community that were good, but they didn't see it that way. And if you violated that policy or didn't get their permission to do something, you might have always had to get permission from them. They always know what's going on. They always want, and a lot of them just decided, well, we're local, we can just do this on our own, and they have a way of putting you in. I remember John Miley Price. He was very active during Lee Alcorn's administration. And Lee was cited, someone filed a complaint against Lee. And, Lee made, during an election, who was the candidate that, Lee was out at one of the radio stations being interviewed, and word had come down that, he became an independent senator. He was going to be a vice president candidate. He was Jewish. What was his name? Very conservative, and that he was going to be on the ticket, and Lee made some, remarks that were not positive about the individual, and the national office removed him from office, but they reinstated him. And then later on, Lee got into trouble. Someone had filed a complaint against him, and they removed him.
Are you talking about Joe Lieberman?
Lieberman, right? That's the one. Yes, I never forget that. That was
Okay. Dr. Roberts, you have any questions?
Yes. The Attorney General, John Ben Shepherd, was attempting to outlaw the NAACP in Texas. And he came to Texas, it's Western, here's Wesleyan?
Texas Western.
Texas Western.
Okay,
Texas Western, to try to intimidate you. And he went into the dean's office and requested to see you and so forth, but the dean did not send for you, but asked them to leave. Do you have any recollection of that?
Oh, yes, sir. Yes, as you pointed out he was trying to outlaw the NAACP, and he was going around intimidating those who had the NAACP had represented. And so they came to El Paso and came on campus and talked with the dean, and the dean would not permit them to, would not make me available to see them on campus. And of course, then they went to the law enforcement people there in El Paso, and they would not cooperate with them at all. Dean called me in and asked me if I wanted to talk to them. I told him no, and he said, "Well, we will not permit them to bother you." And they did call me up on the telephone. Where I was living out in the city, and of course, I didn't talk to them at all. No.
In that same line, did you receive any kind of intimidation, calls, threats on your life when you found, did your parents go through any situations like that as a result of your being the plaintiff for North Texas?
No, not that I recall. There were no complaints at all that I can recall of on the family, period.
Okay, the next question is in the real estate area. I know there are two separate, I think one's called the Realtors Association, Dallas Board of Realtors. Can you comment on how the two evolved and then who the first presidents were of the black organization?
In the real estate world, they were segregated, and so what happened is, reading the history of the Realtors, that was the black organization. They formed A. Smith, by the way, was one of the leading African American citizens here in Dallas. And I think it was 13 or 14 of them got together in Florida back in the late 40s. And they saw the need for blacks to come together and have some kind of organization. And they put together what they called NAREB. It's the National Association of Real Estate Brokers. And that was the black organization. And of course, the logo became DAREB, Dallas Association of Real Estate Brokers. Wherever you were, they would put that in there. And in Dallas now, they did not have access to the Realtors group. And of course, eventually, because of the MLS, we're called multiple listing services. This is where you put all your listings where everybody have access to them and so forth.